Hello and welcome. This is Business News, now reaching you live from iBrandTV News Studio, Lagos, Nigeria. Coming up, Federation account slides by 1.58 trillion naira in 10 months. Reps invite Malami, Adebayo, FIRS over tax holiday controversy. IMF board approves $570 million credit facility for Chad. And Fed stars in central bank extravaganza. Glad to have you join us, and here are business stories making headlines at this hour. I am Omobolanle Adeshuyi. We begin with Nigeria's oil and gas sector. Remittances by the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC Limited, to the Federation account plunged by 1.58 trillion naira between January and October this year, according to data obtained from the NNPC. It was, however, gathered that the drop was due to the humongous sums spent in subsidizing premium motor spirit, popularly called petrol, pipeline security, and maintenance cost, among others, during the 10-month period. Figures obtained from the NNPC show that 2.093 trillion naira was a net revenue that should have been remitted to the Federation Account Allocation Committee for sharing among the three tiers of government between January and October 2021. But what was actually shared by the three tiers of government during the 10-month period was put at 511.667 billion naira, while 1.58 trillion naira could not be shared as the sum was used to subsidize petrol repair for vandalized pipelines, among others. And still talking oil and gas, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company, NNPC Limited, has announced a huge leap in trading surplus of 141.96 billion naira recorded in June 2021, compared to a deficit of 37.46 billion naira in May 2021. This is contained in the June 2021 figures of the NNPC Monthly Financial and Operations Report, MFOR. A trading surplus or trading deficit is derived after deductions of the expenditure profile from the revenue for the period under review. In June 2021, NNPC Group operating revenue as compared to May 2021 decreased by 9.07% or 89.27 billion naira to stand at 894.64 billion naira. Similarly, expenditure for the month decreased by 29.32% or 299.4 billion naira to stand at 721.93 billion naira. Thus, in the period under review, expenditure as a proportion of revenue was 0.81% compared to the figure in May, which stood at 1.04%. The House of Representatives Committee on Public Accounts has invited the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, Niyi Adebayo, Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation, Attorney Abubakar Malami, SAN, and the Federal Inland Revenue Service to come forward and to explain why some companies were not given a certificate of acceptance before being allowed to enjoy tax holidays. The committee issued the invitation based on a disagreement between the lawmakers and the management of Nigeria Ajib Oil Company over the desirability of the certificate as a prerequisite for enjoying tax holiday by companies operating in Nigeria. Chairman of the committee, Oluwole Oke, had at the investigative hearing on Friday insisted that the certificate of acceptance was a necessity to claim capital allowances and enjoy tax holiday. However, the divisional manager, tax and JV coordination, NAOC, Oluwole Agbede, however, said the certificate was not needed due to the nature of their work. And moving on, the Securities and Exchange Commission has said it will be collaborating with stakeholders in real estate investment to reduce the country's housing deficit. The Director General, SEC, Mr. Lamido Yuguda, said this during a meeting with the Nigerian Institution of Estate Surveyors and Valuers in Abuja. According to a statement, Yuguda said the SEC values the service that the institution provides to the capital market and the nation, adding that there was a large room for greater collaboration between the Commission and the institution. The president and chairman of the council, Mr. Emmanuel Wike, also commended the SEC management for the contribution the capital market was making to the economic development of the country. Stakeholders in the maritime industry have emphasized the need for the nation's customs processes to be fully digitalized, along with key massive infrastructural development that would ease the movement of goods and services out of the port environment. This, according to them, if adopted, would lead to minimal human contact in the clearing process and cut down the multiple checks of cargoes by customs and other security agencies, which breeds corruption within the maritime industry. This was disclosed at a town hall meeting on the future of Nigeria's maritime industry with the theme, quote, "Achieving Effective Digitalization of Nigeria's Maritime Industry," end of quote, held in Lagos. Speaking at the event, the chairman, Seaport Terminal Operators Association of Nigeria, STOAN, Dr. Vicky Hastrop, said automation improves cargo handling operation and trade flow at the port for port capacity and efficiency. The Nigeria Customs Service, NCS, granted over 1.4 trillion naira as waivers on imported goods in the last 3 years, according to reports. Import duty waivers, concessions and exemptions are used by the government across the globe to protect local industries, boost the economy and create jobs, but they have typically been abused in the country and have become a conduit pipe to siphon public funds. Between January 2019 and December last year, the sum of 992.9 billion naira was granted as waivers. This indicates over 400 billion naira has been granted as waivers by the service between January and October this year. A member of the Association of Nigerian Licensed Customs Agents, Dr. Kayode Farito, noted that while import duty waivers are used by the leaders of the countries to protect the economic base of their countries, mostly in protecting local industries, creating jobs and promoting exports, the reverse is the case in Nigeria. And the new report published by the World Bank, UNESCO and UNICEF has projected that this generation of students risk losing $17 trillion in lifetime earnings in present value, or about 14% of today's global gross domestic product, GDP, as a result of COVID-19 pandemic-related school closures. The new projection reveals that the impact is more severe than previously thought and far exceeds the $10 trillion estimate released in 2020. The report said that barring a few exceptions, the general trends from emerging evidence around the world align with the findings from Mexico, suggesting that the crisis has exacerbated inequities in education. We'll take a short break now. We'll be right back with stories from the African scene. Please stay with us.
Swift Dry Cleaners Limited, professional dry cleaners, best in dry cleaning and laundry services that meets the needs of our consumers. Yeah, Swift Dry Cleaners Limited. Swift Dry Cleaners Limited. Swift Dry Cleaners Limited. Swift Dry Cleaners Limited. Yeah, for clean wash and quick delivery. Yeah, Swift Dry Cleaners Limited. Swift Dry Cleaners Limited. Swift Dry Cleaners Limited. For clean wash and quick delivery. Ooh.
Swift Dry Cleaners. Clean wash, quick delivery.
Powerful looks command respect, they say. The perfect body, the perfect grooming, and ultimately the perfect skin.
Looks, style, and grooming makes the ultimate man. I've found a ridiculously easy way to make my skin always feel epic. My name is Neo. I found Blemiviv, and now my skin finally makes sense.
Thank you for staying with us. Now for stories from the African scene. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, has approved a 3-year extended credit facility worth $570 million for Chad, capping a process that required Chad to restructure all its official and commercial debt. The approval allows the IMF to immediately disburse more than $78 million, the lender said in a statement. The IMF had conditioned any new agreement with Chad on the restructuring of all its debt. Recall that reports last month showed that Glencore, Chad's largest private creditor, had offered assurances over the restructuring of about $1 billion in commercial debt. The fund said restoring Chad's debt sustainability relies on a multi-year fiscal consolidation program, significant donor support, and deep debt restructuring under the G20 common framework. And still on the African scene, as the Omicron variant of COVID-19 threatens to erode gains made in the fight against the pandemic, Ghana's health authorities and the aviation authority have issued strict guidelines to airlines flying passengers into the country. In a statement announcing new plans to guard against another wave of COVID-19 infections, the authorities said effective Tuesday, December 14, 2021, persons flying in and out of the country are to be fully vaccinated and to strictly follow stipulated guidelines for both self-preservation and the protection of the larger society. They also warned that airlines which bring in passengers to the Kotoka International Airport who are not fully vaccinated shall be surcharged $3,500 per passenger, and airlines with board passengers without PCR test results or transport and disembark passengers with positive PCR test result into Accra will also be fined $3,500 per passenger, while non-Ghanaians who fall into this category may be denied entry and returned to the point of embarkation at a cost to the airline. Ghanaian passengers will be allowed entry but subject to 14 days of mandatory quarantine at a designated facility. And moving on now to the foreign scene. Oil prices rose on Monday, extending gains from last Friday, helped by growing optimism that the Omicron coronavirus variant's impact will be limited on global economic growth and fuel demand. Brent futures climbed 53 cents or 0.7% to $75.68 a barrel by 100 GMT after rising 1% on Friday. U.S. West Texas Intermediate WTI gained 69 cents or 1% to $72.36 a barrel, following a 1% increase in the previous session. Both benchmarks posted gains of about 8% last week, their first weekly gain in 7. They have recovered more than half the losses suffered since the Omicron outbreak on November 25. Still on the foreign scene, Asian stocks crept higher on Monday as investors prepared to tiptoe through a minefield of 17 central banks meetings this week and the likely early end to U.S. policy stimulus. Omicron remained a concern, with British Prime Minister Boris Johnson warning of a tidal wave of new cases of the coronavirus variant. though markets are still counting on vaccines to limit the economic fallout. The Federal Reserve is widely expected to signal a faster tapering of asset buying this week, and thus an earlier start to rate hikes. It will also update the dot plot for rate over the next couple of years. The market is already well ahead, with a rise of 0.25% fully priced in by May and rates of 0.75% by year end. Up next is the entertainment business.
Swift Dry Cleaners Limited, professional dry cleaners, best in dry cleaning and laundry services that meets the needs of our consumers. Yeah, Swift Dry Cleaners Limited. Swift Dry Cleaners Limited. Swift Dry Cleaners Limited. Swift Dry Cleaners Limited. Yeah, for clean wash and quick delivery. Yeah, Swift Dry Cleaners Limited. Swift Dry Cleaners Limited. Swift Dry Cleaners Limited. For clean wash and quick delivery. Ooh.
Swift Dry Cleaners. Clean wash, quick delivery.
Powerful looks command respect, they say. The perfect body, the perfect grooming, and ultimately the perfect skin. Looks, style, and grooming makes the ultimate man. I've found a ridiculously easy way to make my skin always feel epic. My name is Neo. I found Malami, and now my skin finally makes sense.
This is Entertainment Business News. My name is Agogo Ayanago. Shares of AMC Entertainment slumped nearly 7% on Friday after two of the company's executives sold significant portions of their stock. CEO Adam Aaron sold another $9.65 million in AMC stock as part of his estate planning, a move he warned investors he would make back in August. He sold 312,500 shares on Tuesday for an average of $30.86 apiece, according to regulatory filing on Thursday. This sales comes 1 month after Aaron sold 625,000 shares of the company for around $25 million. He continues to hold around 96,000 shares, excluding about 2.9 million issuable in the future and based on performance targets. AMC Chief Financial Officer Sean Goodman also sold all of his 18,316 shares for around $565,000, according to a separate filing with the Securities and Exchange Commission. This does not include around 296,000 shares issuable based on Goodman's continued service with the company, or around 293,000 shares attached to performance goals and targets. Aaron recently announced that the company's board approved a new stock policy for the company's senior executives that would require them to hold a certain amount of AMC shares. Under the new policy, the CEO is required to hold owned or granted shares equal to at least 8 years of salary. The CFO has to hold 6 years' worth of salary in stock. Goodman's uninvested stock meets that requirement. Moving on, West Side Story Steven Spielberg's remake of the classical music flopped in its box office debut, collecting a paltry $10.5 million from 2,820 theaters. That's cause for concern because Disney and 20th Century Studios spent $100 million to revive the Shakespearean love story for modern times and stand to lose millions unless West Side Story endures at the box office through the holidays and Oscar season. It is a bad start for one of the most critically acclaimed films of the year and one that opened exclusively in theaters. Though every new movie musical has struggled to entice audience in COVID times, it's worrisome for both theater operations and traditional studios that West Side Story, one of the most beloved stories in musical theater history and under the direction of Hollywood's most commercial successful filmmaker, sold fewer tickets than In the Heights, which sold 11.5 million at its debut, a lesser-known song and dance property that premiered simultaneously on HBO Max. That's all we have for you on Entertainment Business. Back to you, Malami.
Thank you, Agogo. Next is sports business.
Swift Dry Cleaners Limited, professional dry cleaners, best in dry cleaning and laundry services that meets the needs of our consumers. Yeah, Swift Dry Cleaners Limited. Swift Dry Cleaners Limited. Swift Dry Cleaners Limited. Swift Dry Cleaners Limited. Yeah. For clean wash and quick delivery, yeah. Swift Dry Cleaners Limited. Swift Dry Cleaners Limited. Swift Dry Cleaners Limited. For clean wash and quick delivery. Ooh.
Swift Dry Cleaners. Clean wash, quick delivery.
Powerful looks command respect, they say. The perfect body, the perfect grooming, and ultimately the perfect skin. Looks, style, and grooming makes the ultimate man. I've found a ridiculously easy way to make my skin always feel epic. My name is Neo. I found Malami, and now my skin finally makes sense.
On sports business at this hour, NBA legend Bill Russell's Boston Celtics and Olympic memorabilia sold for more than $5.3 million at an auction held at TD Gardens. Some of the items sold and their prices include his 1969 NBA Finals Game 7 jersey, which sold for $1.1 million, first championship ring, which sold for $705,000, 1956 Olympic gold medal, which sold for $587,000, and 5 MVP trophies, which sold for $1.3 million. The auction featured 429 items from Russell's career. In addition to the aforementioned items, a page from his scrapbook signed by Jackie Robinson sold for $94,000. Some of the proceeds are being donated to Mentor, which aims to close the mentoring gap and drive equity through quality mentoring relationships for young people, and also to Boston Celtics United for social justice. Russell, a Hall of Famer, spent his entire 13-year career with the Celtics, winning 11 NBA titles and 5 MVP awards and being named to 12 All-Star teams. And still talking sports business, the NHL have become the latest league to allow private equity firms to invest in teams, with 2 deals already lined up. Actors Sports Partners is set to buy stakes in the Minnesota Wild and Tampa Bay Lightning after the NHL's Board of Governors voted last week to change its rules to allow for institutional investors. The new rules follow in the paths of the NBA, MLS, and MLB, which have all rewritten bylaws to allow for new ownership structures. NHL teams can sell up to a 30% stake to private firms, while individual firms can own up to 20% of a team, and firms can have stakes in up to 5 NHL teams, with the minimum investment required being $20 million. The league has also approved the sale of an up to 10% stake of the Wild to Actors per team owner Craig Leopold. Actors have also been approved to buy an undisclosed stake in the Lightning. Actors Sports Investments, Actors flagship fund, topped $3 billion in October after raising a $2.1 billion. The firm has a 17% stake in the NBA's Sacramento Kings, valued at $1.8 billion, as well as a 5% stake in the Golden State Warriors, valued at $5.5 billion. It also holds stakes in Fenway Sports Group and the Premier Lacrosse League. And that's it on Sports Business. I'm Samson Olede.
Well, thank you, Samson. That's it on Business News. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Omobolanle Adeshi. From all of us here, it's bye for now.